This is 20 Minutes of Impact from the United States Energy Association Power Sector Podcast, sponsored by Energy Hub. I'm Herman K. Trabish. I've covered the power sector since 2006, and I currently report for Utility Dive. In this episode of the podcast series on virtual power plants, or VPPs, my guest is Noman Trivedi, Group CEO of online consumer energy products marketplace EnergySage, and VPP for home energy with multinational power products provider Schneider Electric. Noman is going to describe observations from the EnergySage marketplace about consumer attitudes and consumer understanding of the value of the aggregated distributed energy resources, or DER, that are the core of VPPs. Noman began his career in 2013 with the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. He moved to Google in 2016, and in 2017 co-founded and became CEO of consumer energy products marketer Wattbuy. EnergySage was acquired by Schneider Electric in 2022, and Wattbuy was acquired in 2025, allowing Noman to be Group CEO of EnergySage and Schneider's VPP for home energy. So, with all that going for him, Noman, EnergySage was founded in 2009 as an online shopper's guide for rooftop solar. Over the years, it's added battery storage and other smart electric products and appliances, generally referred to, of course, as distributed energy resources, or DER. This year, the federal tax credit supporting DER changed dramatically. Can you summarize those changes? I know that your most recent report on the marketplace, goes into what the changes are and what consumer buying practices has EnergySage, observed from those policy changes.
Thanks, Herman, for having me, and happy to chat on this topic today. And maybe I'll actually just start by giving a bit of background on Energy Sage and what we're doing, and then certainly can get into the changes that we're seeing in the market. So, Energy Sage,
Great.
like you mentioned, started as a solar comparison shopping marketplace, really helping homeowners get competitive quotes and go solar with confidence. And over time, we saw that solar was often just the first step in a much larger home energy journey. So we expanded into battery storage, EV chargers, retail energy plans, really the full suite of electrification technologies. And more recently, Energy Sage, Wattby, and Qmerit Residential came together as one company under Schneider Electric. And so what
Mm,
that means is we can actually now take a homeowner from personalized recommendations about their specific home based on their roof, their utility rate, their energy usage, through comparison shopping, all the way to pricing and connecting them with a qualified vetted installer to actually complete the job. So the vision we have is it's actually the full journey under one roof where we can do right by the customer all the way through.
wow.
So yeah, so that's kind of what we're building. And like you mentioned, we just released our 22nd marketplace report, and for the first time, it actually covers the entire electrification stack. So we actually do have a really unique data-driven window into how policy changes translate into real consumer and installer behavior across all of these categories. So I can talk through some of the changes on the policy side, and what
Yeah.
we're seeing as a result of that. So, the one big beautiful bill, which was signed on July 4th of last year, eliminated the 30% federal tax credit for homeowner purchased solar and battery systems installed after December 31st of last year, 2025. There was no phase down, right? It went from 30% to zero overnight. That said, the third party ownership model, leases and power purchase agreements, still qualify for the commercial tax credit. So, solar third party ownership, or TPO, is eligible through 2027, and the battery TPO actually extends all the way to 2033 before it begins phasing out. So there's nearly another decade of incentive support for lease systems, especially around batteries, which is reshaping the market in real time. That deadline last year created a massive rush. So on our platform on Energy Sage, we saw an almost 200% year over year increase in homeowners actively working with installers, which was the largest demand surge I think the industry has ever seen. Most installers reported filing their annual capacity by October 2025, almost a full 3 months before the deadline. And what's remarkable is how the market responded to that pressure. So, despite that overwhelming demand, solar prices, barely rose about 0.4% to about $2.49 per watt. For the average system of about 12 kilowatts, that's about $29,400 before incentives. So our marketplace model actually kept pricing competitive, which is what we like to see, where buyers can compare quotes head to head, and it's hard for costs to really spiral out of control. Um, the sharpest indicator, though, of what that tax credit loss means for homeowners is that the payback period jumped almost 40%. So the average payback period was about 4.5 years. Sorry, 7.5 years in Q3 to about 10.5 years in Q4. So that kind of
Wow.
tells you the economic gap that incentive elimination creates.
It's interesting. So there were incentives left, but they just weren't quite as beneficial as they might have been. I should tell our listeners that Energy Sage is available online, energysage.com, and the market report is available on the website. And the website is designed to guide you through whatever the opportunities are. But I want to get to the big question. This series, Naman, is about virtual power plants. So a lot of the questions that I'm going to ask you have to do with what consumers are doing that may or may not move the development of virtual power plants along. So my next question is, are customers finding new or different reasons for shopping for these products, rooftop solar, home batteries, and other DER? I mean, are there, you can't pay them off as quickly, but are there other reasons that you think customers are finding to get involved with DER?
It's a really great question, and we actually get a real time look at homeowner motivations because we have millions of people using the marketplace to research and purchase solar batteries, and other home energy technologies. And increasingly, we see that people want guidance across the entire home energy system, not just one
Mm,
product. So when we ask homeowners why they are interested in batteries, for example, the answer is often split three ways in almost even measure. About 30 30 to 35% say savings on utility rates, which we would expect. About
okay.
30% say self-supply is one, and then the third reason is backup power or resiliency. And so really it coalesces around affordability and resilience, but that balance matters. I think it tells you that batteries, for example, as a core DER, serve multiple market needs. And critically, the financial motivations often edge out resilience still. And I think that's important because it shapes how the industry should be selling these products. And we find that there is actually a gap between what installers generally quote as the main reason for customer motivation and what we see kind of the broad market tell us. So when we survey installers, uh, almost two-thirds name emergency backup as the primary customer motivation, while only 11% cite financial savings. So there's a significant perception gap there. It leads installers to default to pitching full home backup systems, which can be expensive and complex, when many customers may be better served by a simpler, lower cost battery designed around bill management and self-consumption and enrolling in a VPP program as well. So closing that mismatch is kind of the real conversion opportunity, and that's kind of what we seek to help with a little bit.
Yeah. That brings us right
Yeah,
to the question I wanted to ask you. Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Did you want to finish that thought? Because I want to get to this next question, but did you want to finish that thought?
only thing I would add is that rising utility rates is kind of
Mm,
one of the biggest drivers of affordability, and I think we see that in some of our top markets: California, Massachusetts, above 31 cents per kilowatt hour; New York at 27, Connecticut up there as well. And so those rates have been climbing faster than inflation since 2022. So when your bill is going up, um, you really look at an energy system as an investment, but with a payback period and an ROI associated with it. And that's where increasingly we see VPPs playing a bigger role in being able to put more dollars back in that payback calculator for the customer.
Here's a quick note from the sponsor of our series of podcasts about virtual power plants, Energy Hub. What if everyday devices had the potential to strengthen the grid when it's needed most? Energy Hub helps utilities turn that potential into dependable capacity by coordinating thermostats, EVs, batteries, and other devices so they work together as virtual power plants or VPPs that respond to grid needs in near real time. Energy Hub's latest white paper lays out a maturity model for VPPs that can be planned and dispatched with the same confidence as conventional plants while being 40 to 60% less expensive to build. That's why more than 160 utilities across North America partner with Energy Hub to manage over 2.5 million devices that provide 3.4 gigawatts of flexible capacity. Read the white paper and discover what VPPs can do for your grid at energyhub.com. The customers want to control their bills, control their costs. Some of them want backup power. Um, and those are somewhat examples of, from my point of view, and you can correct me when I get done answering this, asking this question, but that seems like a kind of thinking about independence in a funny way. But of course, VPPs are a way of participating in the system and actually benefiting the system with their participation. So, what I want to ask you is, are you seeing an awareness of customers that there is this opportunity for compensation by participating in demand response and virtual power plant programs? Um, in what ways can advocates for DER expand consumer awareness? I'm thinking maybe they, from what you said, that they don't have that awareness yet. In what ways can they expand that awareness? I have a follow up, but go ahead and answer that part of it. Are they showing interest, or are there ways to expand awareness?
It's a really important question, and it's a bit it's tricky because VPPs are exciting because they directly hit on the value proposition that already motivate homeowners. Lower bills, getting paid for something your home can already do,
Yeah.
and assets that you might already have. So in concept, it's perfect alignment, right? The homeowner saves money, the grid gets distributed capacity, and we avoid building expensive new generation. So the problem is not value proposition. Exactly like you said, the problem is awareness, but that gap is actually enormous. Um, when homeowners shop on EnergySage, they are actually primarily motivated by bill saving, self-consumption, backup power, but they're rarely shopping for VPP participation directly, right? And there's kind of two things here that we see, as important. One is the terminology itself is a barrier, right? Virtual power plant and demand response are industry jargon and don't resonate with everyday homeowners, right? People don't know that they can earn money by letting their battery support the grid or letting their EV support the grid, in the near future. Um, and that awareness gap, I think, extends to the supply side as well. When we surveyed EV charger installers through QMerit about what factors matter most when selecting a new charger product, advanced features like VPP and demand response ranked dead last. Almost about
Hmm.
5%. Ease
Wow.
of installation was almost 75%. Price was at 72%. So if installers themselves are also not prioritizing VPP capabilities in their equipment choices, that signals how far we are kind of from mainstream adoption. But I think here's the encouraging part. The building blocks are already in place, right? There's already solar systems, batteries, chargers, smart thermostats installed in homes, and these assets can make up, a virtual power plant. So all the assets that can make up a virtual power plant in a given utility region are already installed in millions of homes. So the infrastructure exists, but how do you close that gap? In our mind, it's a few things. One, you have to embed VPP participation in the actual purchase journey. So don't bolt it on after the fact. When someone's already shopping for a battery on EnergySage, and almost 70% of our solar shoppers express interest in adding on storage, that's the addressable audience, right? We can show them at the point of purchase, at the point of purchase of their battery, that they can earn money through grid participation, not just save on their electric, not just by saving on their electric bill. So make it part of the value proposition from day one. So that's kind of one big area of work. And then the second one I would say is automating that participation. Right. So uh, dispatch fatigue, I think, is a real risk as grid events become more frequent, right? Homeowners should not have to think about when their battery dispatches. But if you make people actively manage their participation, you'll lose them. So that experience has to be seamless. It should be automated, should be behind the scenes with clear dollar value showing up in your statement, or in your email or whatever way makes the most sense. But that's kind of a second area. And then there's a third kind of broader opportunity, I think, around the whole industry working together to kind of get this message out.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. I've heard um, Jigar Shah, who was in the Biden administration, in the loan office, DOE loan office, brought this up recently, talking about a really big marketing campaign where all the players in this area, from Schneider Electric on down to Uplight and solar installers and battery charger builders and suppliers, contribute to a big campaign. Maybe he said $100 million, if you can imagine. Do you think that that kind of a marketing campaign could reach people? Do you think that would be worth the cost? Do you think it's a good idea?
I think it's pretty interesting, and Jigger is extremely smart, and we love talking to him about the market as well. I think there is a place for utilities, equipment manufacturers, aggregators, and marketplace platforms like ours to collaborate on standards, compensation structures, enrollment pathways. Right, for 2222 is rolling out. State level programs are expanding, but these programs have to be easy. They have to be easy to understand. They have to be easy to enroll in and easy to participate in. So if you make it complicated, adoption stalls no matter how good those economics are. And I think that's true for the marketing piece as well, right? There's a legitimate case for coordinated education because VPPs only work at scale when a large number of households participate. And right now, most homeowners with eligible equipment don't even know those options exist. But I would still argue that the highest return dollars go towards making participation effortless. Smart enrollment at the point of sale, automated dispatch, clear and consistent compensation. But that broad awareness is very critical, to ensure that any new entrants, new customers, kind of in this market, understand what they can do, and all the sitting capacity that we have, in the U.S. today is able to be harnessed. So you need kind of both pieces of that to be working, in concert for us to really scale up VPP markets.
Well, this idea of a mega marketing campaign, it's really a little bit distant from the home energy marketplace, which has always been, I don't want to call it niche, but it's never been this kind of thing that you could see prime time or Super Bowl ads for. But it is a really interesting idea. And it seems to me, and everybody that I've talked to in this VPP series of podcasts points out that there's benefit for the people who invest in DER, and there's benefit for people who don't and who aren't interested because it brings down the electricity rates that people pay, because VPPs specifically address the places in the power system where the costs go up. It controls peak demand and it limits, I don't know if limits is the right word, but it helps limit expenditures that utilities have to make. And those expenditures are what drive up bills. Am I saying that right? Do you think I'm getting at something there?
I think that's exactly right. I think that's the promise of VPPs working at scale that we right now feels. I wouldn't go as far as say as to say it feels theoretical, but it's not at a level of maturity where we can realize that value. But with a few of these things working in concert, there is a potential that we get to that stage in the next several years.
Okay, well, that's the brought me exactly to the last question. We don't have a whole lot of time left, Noman, but I want to ask you to get out your crystal ball. you've got this perspective across the marketplace, the DER marketplace, um, through EnergySage. So I want to get before we close, your near-term and long-term expectations for what's going to happen. Right now we have these limits on through policy that we didn't have a couple of years ago, but that doesn't mean that they're always going to be there. What's the potential for customers being involved with ownership of distributed energy resources and involvement in distributed demand response and VPP programs? What do you think?
So in the near term, next, 1 to 3 years, I think I see a few things converging. First is that uh, you know the third party ownership model, leases and PPAs, will become the dominant residential solar model, right? With tax credits gone for purchase systems, this is the only path to federal incentives for homeowners, and that advantage extends to 2033 for batteries. So we're already seeing that shift on our platform today.
Mhm.
That has direct implication for VPPs because the TPO provider owns the battery, right? They can enroll it in grid programs by default with customer consent, removing the friction, of separate enrollment entirely. So that has real potential. Second is I think we're going to see a pretty massive storage retrofit wave. So we had thousands
Mhm.
of homeowners install solar systems in the second half of last year to beat the deadline. But the interest in batteries held quite steady. So a lot of those homeowners are prime candidates to come back and add storage, which is a natural on ramp for VPP enrollment as well. And then third is that the economic drivers for DERs are getting stronger, not weaker. So rising rates across major markets make the payback case work even without federal incentives. And grid reliability concerns from extreme weather are accelerating battery adoption in states like Texas, Florida, California. So that actually happens. Those happen to be the exact markets where VPPs can deliver the most value. And then
All right.
longer
Yeah.
term, 5 to 10 years out, I think customer owned DER probably will become a permanent part of grid planning, right? So not a pilot, not an experiment, but a dispatchable asset class embedded in rate design and capacity markets. So the electrified home, yeah, solar, battery, EV chargers, heat pumps, smart panels, connected and orchestrated is not just a consumer of energy, it's actually a grid participant. So that's I think the long-term shift is that we see VPPs shifting from pilot programs to core grid infrastructure strategy.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more about on both of those points. And I want to add for our listeners, in my reporting, I've seen a lot of progress being made in both of those things, including VPPs in utility planning and moving more quickly from pilot programs to full scale programs. So those are real reasons to echo your observations and to think that VPPs are coming and they're coming in a bigger and bigger way. But that's all the time we have, and that's all the time we have for my editorializing as well. I want to thank you. My guest has been Noman Trivedi, Group CEO of EnergySage and Schneider Electric VP for Home Energy. He's provided a unique perspective from across the DER marketplace on the potential to grow customer awareness of the opportunity in VPP programs. And I think he's right, and not just because he happens to agree with me. I also want to thank our sponsor, Energy Hub, and my producer, Melissa Brown. And as always, I want to thank our listeners for taking the time to check out the USEA Power Sector Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with everybody you know our quest for energy transition solutions.